motivate in our discovery of the teachings of Samsara and Nirvana. So particularly this profound teaching on the 12 links of dependent origination, unpacking what all that iconography means, continuing on from previously, and to have this opportunity to continue on together, engaging in discussion, reflection, listening, meditation, which is the result of vast accumulations of merit we've created in past lifetimes that have ripened in this very moment, and so that we don't let one moment of our virtuous karma go to waste, but multiply as much as we can in every moment. Okay. So a couple of things I wanted to mention today, being March the 10th, is the commemoration of Tibetan Uprising Day, it's called. When there was a historical, that crackdown with the Chinese coming into Tibet. And so I don't know about here in Perth, but my friends over in Sydney are participating in processions and events today to mark that occasion.
Flag raising happening.
Flag raising? Right, okay, cool. And speaking of flags, just while I remember, because you mentioned flag, could you sometime in the next week find where the Tibetan flag is in one of these? I know it's in there. Yeah, I left it in this. I left it in there so that I knew where it was to take it to Bunbury for the flag procession, and then I forgot to take it to Bunbury. I think it's very obvious.
Okay.
It's just folded up. So the reason I want the Tibetan flag is next Saturday, that's the other one, we're having an event for Harmony Week. I'm sure everyone's aware. So an interfaith event bringing people from different faith groups and different Buddhist groups and Tibetans singing and dancing, and ourselves together. Sunny's providing a nice Vietnamese meal at the for afternoon tea. I was like, when you said I'm like, that's a whole meal, Sunny. Very generously offering that. So yeah, I hope everyone can come support. Yeah, meet some new people. Yeah, wonderful group of people. So hopefully this will be an annual event for anyway. Anyway, we're already planning next year. Bigger and better. So this is the first time. And then the not so joyous news. Venerable Yeshe is leaving us, returning to Chenrezig Institute. I hope not for too long. However, there's a big year ahead at Chenrezig with the 50 years celebrations and with hosting the Ganden Tripa, and we've got a lot on this year. In any case, we're having a morning tea to, what do we say? Not so much farewell, not so much goodbye as till we meet again, something on the, Auf Wiedersehen, à la prochaine, same, till the next time we meet again. Whereas a couple of my friends in the Blue Mountains say SJSR, safe journey, safe return. Anyway, so that's on the 23rd at 10 a.m. and want just a morning tea. So just a morning tea. Apart from saying it's on, we haven't organised anything. Okay, so here you have a actually sizable wheel of life.
Very positive feedback on that.
Yeah, that we can actually see. Wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, I was very excited to be able to procure that in a size and the whatever definition's pretty good. And so last time I think we looked at the inner circles here and the 6 realms, if you recall. And then the words down below in the sort of a traditional presentation where the Buddha, who's standing to the left of Yama, the Lord of Death. So he's outside of that wheel of samsara, so of course not caught up in samsara, and he's pointing, here it's pointing at the moon, which often it is, but usually that's where the text goes, like the Tibetan text goes over there. And so, as the text says, make effort to destroy it, this wheel of life, this, well, all of samsara. And destroy it means samsara is not a place. It's not saying destroy the world or anything like that. Samsara is about our mind states. Enter into Buddha Dharma, tick. Eliminate the Lord of Death, okay, working on it, who's the one that our whole suffering existences, lifetime to lifetime, are held in the grip of, as an elephant destroys a grass hut. So an elephant could completely, thoroughly, without any remainder, destroy the grass hut. So that's how we want to destroy samsara. And the second part of that quote that's not here is, whoever takes up the practice of Vinaya, so the basket of Vinaya is about ethics, good conduct, virtuous conduct, with great conscientiousness, so mindfulness, aware of what we're doing, intentional accumulation of virtue, benefiting others, etc., abandons the cycle of rebirth and thus brings an end to suffering. So here we have, the beings who are, perhaps who are just about out of samsara, really look forward to that time of death that we don't want to know about, like death, because it's like that's when we have the opportunity to come into contact with our true nature, this what we say, the clear light mind, the most subtle level of mind. So, when we were looking at death and impermanence, it was like we look at the dissolutions of the body, but then of the mind, at the coarse level of mind, more subtle levels of mind, until you arrive at this non-conceptual, shall we say, connection with our true nature. The true nature of mind is just that, clear and knowing. So the analogy of like luminous space, unobstructed, etc. So that that is the most powerful, the most subtle, most powerful state of mind. And if we're able to access that and use it, utilize it, like great meditators have done, to be able to use it to complete practices that you completely transform your rebirth. So we have control over life and death. We can choose a rebirth. So that's what we're aiming at. Here at the moment, we're propelled by, as it says, karma and delusions to continue on in that cycle. And we mentioned that last time with the beings either on the black side, just plummeting down completely out of control into lower realms, or on the virtue side. Also, we have, here we got this precious human rebirth, fortunately, due to the ripening of virtuous karma at our time of death in the previous life, due to having made stainless prayers, due to having kept impeccable ethics, in the context most likely of taking vows and so forth. So we've managed to get a higher rebirth, and not only that, as we looked at in the sort of looking at a precious human rebirth, all the conditions to engage with the Dharma again and do what we can. Okay, so today just looking at these 12 links, just which is the outer ring. So this is the most important. Well, it's all important. Every bit of it's important, of course. So So we looked at previously like a presentation on the Four Noble Truths in terms of understanding samsara or the nature of suffering and that there is a way out. So this is a different presentation on that. Yeah. So, yeah, so it unpacks all that in a different way, which is quite helpful. And anyway, we'll go through one by one. So up the top, under the left ear of Yama, the Lord of Death, you'll see there's a person stooped over with a stick. What you won't maybe know is that they're also blind. So this is why their arms are out. So they're using the stick. So, so it represents ignorance, that we're blindly propelled forward. We don't know where we're going. We don't know where we're going to be reborn. We don't know, about suffering. We haven't unpacked the Four Noble Truths. We don't know what we'll suffer in a future rebirth. And in this, time in the world, I think this is so relevant to things like euthanasia. That has become, is it legal here in WA? It's become legal pretty much all over the place, isn't it? Because we have this concept of just this life. And so I want to end the suffering of this life, right? And even I've heard Dharma students say this, even, when the crunch comes, to say, I just want the suffering to be over. So we have to really, really get that we could take that suffering into a future life and have an even worse case scenario next time, right? If we follow that thinking and we follow those emotional states. So this is what it's called, being in samsara, this ignorance that just sort of, I don't know where I'm going, I'm totally out of control. And that's what it says, it says the rebirth is sometimes like the karma for our next rebirth is sometimes called projecting, propelling. Anyway, that idea of it being out of control. Currently, that's our situation. Even we worked hard and accumulated a lot of merit to have the best possible conditions. And we want to have the best possible conditions at that death time. And we want to have all the prayers and we want to have, know everything peaceful, etc., etc. We have no idea if that's going to occur, but we want all of those things and we'll do our best to have those things. Best possible conditions. But we can't there's no guarantees. So we're constantly being propelled like this. So this propels our samsara. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that what's also called throwing karma?
Throwing, yeah, just into the next rebirth.
That's what happens at that time.
Yes.
That when you talk about
propelling,
that's
yeah.
The throwing karma.
Yeah.
Result from this life.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. So that gets you your rebirth. There are other conditions that get the environment and all the other, sort of actions similar to the cause and so forth, all the other conditions that come along. But the actual rebirth. So you can look at the human race and you can see there's a lot of very different levels of advantage, opportunity, disability, ability, etc., etc. Physical, mental, emotional capacity in the world. Yes.
Something about euthanasia that often
Yeah.
lives, perhaps better off being able to endure the suffering.
Yes, absolutely. Because if we don't know, unless a Buddha knows, but we don't know, and it's the same for our dear pets and the others, but we don't know if, well, at least we go along with the assumption that whatever suffering's happening in this life, much better to purify it in this life or to experience it in this life so it's fully complete because what happens to karma? It expands, right? Moment by moment.
So we're exhausting it.
So we exhaust it. We hope we exhaust it. We really wanted to exhaust it. I mean, even the guys in prison who were, a couple of guys who were executed and who really grabbed onto the Dharma, just like, we'll just hope that exhausts that. Oh, that's done, right? You know, and had the best possible other conditions for the guys I'm thinking of, 2 guys I'm thinking of in the States. So, so no matter what conditions, no matter what terrible conditions we're having in this life, I'm just saying, you know, euthanasia, suicide, not an option. Once you encounter the Dharma, not an option.
I was just wondering about very, very statement. Somebody first process something, and she said that this person, he was so calm and beautiful, and he said he never felt so cared for after his entire life.
Yes. Yes. That is a positive in itself, but it's not as simplistic as that, is it? So if euthanasia is like assisted dying, so it assisted means it involves someone else, like the nurse or someone else. So not only are you taking your own life, you're causing someone else to maybe not directly kill, but it be involved in that killing process. We can't call it anything else. That's what it is, right? So this is where we look at, you know, that say as you go on in the Dharma, you're more and more out of step with society, because that's not how we think in society. We think, oh, we're relieving the pain and oh, isn't it wonderful and so forth. Yes, it can be very comfortable. We do that for animals, you know, very comfortable, but it's still a killing. It's still a life taken, isn't it? Before the end of that life.
I mean, it's very extreme, but thousand still causing something else to kill.
Well, yes, indirectly. So eating meat, that's already, so I'm not directly saying, Yvonne, go and kill that animal for me. It would be the same then. That would be heavier even, because I'm asking you to kill it. This is not assisted. If I'm asking you to kill it or hold it down while I kill it, which would be assisted, and then eat. But no, we're saying, okay, it's already dead. So it's not that it's not a heavy karma, it's just not the one of killing. So I'm with you on that, because from my rationale, it's like, well, if less people eat meat, there's less demand, and so less animals are killed. I mean, I don't know if anywhere near that's happened to this point, but there have been times, like, you know, when that ship export, when the ones in Indonesia, and they banned meat from Indonesia in Australia for X number period of time because of the torture being experienced by. So of course we have all these things around what appears to us as not a suffering, but say that to the cattle who are going to the abattoir full of fear, and it's like, excuse me, either way I'm going to die, you know, as if I don't know. You know, they smell the fear. So it's an awful death. And they smell the blood, yeah. So we have to really, really interrogate this and say, well, yeah, it's a good question. How is this different? Let me unpack all of that, of how that is different. I mean, you could just say, oh, well, the Buddha said it's okay to eat meat. The Buddha never said it's okay to eat meat. The Buddha only said, do not ask another person to kill, like, don't directly kill yourself or ask another person to do that killing for you, because of the karma involved with that. So even though the person who died peacefully, assisted death, they may, and they felt loved and cared for. So let's say they had out of that a human rebirth, they were still, what are the other things that come along with taking life? That your life is short, that you experience chronic illness, that you're in a place where, you know, say a war zone or something. So we don't know the conditions that would come along for that being in another life. And you think, wow, I thought I was bad off then, if you could remember. Now I have no opportunity. Now it's even worse. Yeah. See, so we really have to look at it long-term, big picture. Most people in the world are not doing that, and we're not trying to make them do that. We'll just maybe try and introduce other options. I mean, I had this qualm this week where I had somebody, I was contacted about somebody who is contemplating assisted dying and wanted to have some contact. It wasn't for me. I had to line up someone else for it, but we had the discussion about it, another nut. And so we had the discussion about it, and it's like, in one sense, she's like, well, I hope they don't contact me. But in another sense, it's like, well, I can do prayers. I'm not going to tell them not to do it, but I'm not also going to, you know, it's like where, of course, the person I spoke to, I asked all the questions about, have they considered blah, 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 blah. And why do they want Buddhist prayers? Because it seemed contradictory to me. But nonetheless, I don't know what's happened with that situation. So, of course, we're going to be one of those supports, but not support the act, but support the person. Yeah.
There's also an idea around really excellent palliative care.
There could be a view that if there's really excellent palliative care, that euthanasia maybe not. I mean, people, yeah, maybe not. Maybe if we had if we had a lot more courage to endure pain. I've known people in excruciating pain say, don't give me the drugs. I want to have a clear mind as I'm dying. Right? They're in excruciating pain. But they're just like, no, I only want to have a clear mind. That's the most important thing to me. Good on you. So, and you'd have to say that palliative care these days probably, I'm assuming, would be heaps better than it was at the time of the Buddha. Just saying. You know, we have a lot of good, and heaps better right here in Australia, even Western Australia, than in many other places in the world as well. So, you know, we've got to look at the thinking that underlies it, not going, oh, it's because of the palliative care system. Well, maybe not. Let's look at what your thinking is. I mean, our thinking is. And, you know, helpful. So this ignorance is what? Is the ignorance grasping at a permanent, independent, self-sufficient self, the one that doesn't exist, because none of us are permanent, independent, self-sufficient, and so forth, as much as we try to be, if we try to be. So it's holding on to that one. So that's the ignorance, the mind of confusion, conceiving in inherent existence, permanent existence. I don't know if people, I wonder if that also plays into people thinking, oh, I can't bear this anymore, this pain, because it's permanent, you know, in their mind. That it's going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever, rather than, well, actually, you know,
Well, it's going to go on until they die.
No. What I'm saying is it's going to go on forever and ever. I'm talking about the thinking, not the reality. The reality is, all right, until you die, which is, you know, maybe not so long. We had within this, I'm thinking of one woman within FPMT who lived with such chronic illness her whole life that she was never not in chronic pain, never not in chronic pain. She did not do euthanasia. She didn't take her own life. She lived it out. She lived out that karma, and we were forever doing prayers for her and so forth. So, and I thought, how is it to be forever in chronic pain? That's not my experience. So that's a really determined practitioner. Really, really quite impressive. I think I'm not sure if she was in her 40s or older, but she wasn't younger than when she did.
My limited experience of chronic pain, having so far, having had the frozen shoulder.
Yes.
When I was in a better state of mind and I focused on the positives, like it felt like my pain was less, and when it was
Yes.
really, really wrong, really it's never gonna end. Like the pain was so much.
Yes. That's right. It's because, you know, when we're grumpy, when we're like this, everything contracts. We contract mentally, we emotionally, and physically. It's all interconnected, isn't it? So, yeah. So we know. So you know from your own experience how different the actual experience of pain. And of course, then there are meditations around pain. Well, just where exactly is the pain? Is it a solid block? Is it coming and going? Is there heat? Is there throbbing? Is it? By the time you sort of take it apart, there's less pain as well. Or your experience is that you do not experience as intense pain. Yes.
It's so heavy, so
Yeah, and you think, oh, it's never going to go away, you know, or you probably don't think that consciously, but we respond as if it's never going to go away. Yeah. And it may not, as this woman experienced. Okay, so that's the root of it all, is being propelled like a blind person trying to navigate their way and not even know it's tumbling around in samsara. Basically what that says. The next one is called either karmic formation, compositional actions, volitional actions. Let's just call it karma. Let's just call it karma. So out of our ignorance, as we've been discussing, we engage in actions from that mind of ignorance, that mind grasping at permanence, that mind grasping at independence, that mind grasping at being self-sufficient, however, you know, protecting this I, and I always point here, we always point here, this I who never wants to experience any pain, who never wants to be blamed, who etc., all the 8 worldly concerns. Okay, so on the basis of that, isn't it, that we engage in actions that, if done with like grumpy mind, are going to be, shall we say, not so skillful actions. Speech, probably in particular, the grumpy speech comes out and we've offended somebody else or been short with them or whatever. And it goes on from there. We've looked at all the ramifications of karma. And so here, that's symbolized in this next image, link. So all of these, you know, are links. So the next one is a potter, making pots of all different shapes and sizes. And so just like that, just as clay can be formed into all different shapes and sizes, so can our karma, the different karmas bringing different results. And that will maybe, you know, we could think of the sizes in relation to how heavy that karma is, positive or negative, you know, very virtuous karma or very negative karma, beautiful pots or, you know, pretty unwieldy
That's
Duds. Or duds, said the potter. He's the expert, right?
familiar.
You're familiar with duds. Yeah. So like that, our karma creates all these different results in different shapes and forms. And even though it's not a physical form, there is that potency that it then remains as an imprint on our mental continuum that just waits for all the conditions to come together to ripen. So we looked at in different manifestations of that. So in that way, that it can be virtuous or meritorious, non-virtuous, or it can be neither. So we say non-fluctuating. So if that were the karma that were to ripen at the time of death, let's say you could be born in the God realms out of meditative absorption. Mind you, if your meditative absorption is blissful, but it can be neutral karma, right? And when we say the time of death, as we know, there's the dissolution of the body, and then we're declared dead. But then there's all the things that happen with the mind, particularly the mind of black near attainment, where it's just like you're falling into unconsciousness. If there's going to be a grasping at the self and freaking out, big time it's happening there, because literally I, who's also the I of this life, am going out of existence. Because even we think of future lives, we think about it's this I continuing on, isn't it? This being continuing on, even though intellectually we might know that's not true, but that's the sense we have. So it becomes very critical. So yeah. So what I'm saying is we might have all those virtuous thoughts and all those prayers and all very peaceful, but internally, we don't know what's going on with someone. We don't know what's happening in their mind. We have no idea. Oh, they died peacefully. And of course, I always think, well, I hope so, but I have no idea, really. Unless you can read their mind. Okay, so karmic formation then becomes the condition for the next life, the conditions that come along for the next life. And that generates, we're not in the next life yet, consciousness, right? So consciousness, so here in the third one along, there's a monkey. We're in India. There are monkeys with fruit swinging from tree to tree. So this is the link between consciousness with the karmic imprint. So here we're talking about a subtle consciousness that's joining the past to the present and the present to the future, joining those lives up. That's what that symbolizes there. And from consciousness arising like that, I mean, it said that in the bardo, as a bardo being in the intermediate state, that you already take a subtle form of your future rebirth. So you take that already as a subtle one. And so in the next one, we have, it's called name and form, and you hear that and you go, what does that mean? So the form, so consciousness generates name and form. In other words, this is actually the 5 aggregates. So we've got a person we've got more than one person. You've got one who's rowing the boat. And the boat is the form, the shape of your next rebirth. So this refers to, the form, and then you have within the boat, you've got a few people there. This is the aggregates of feeling, which is the physical feeling of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral sensations. Discrimination, which is our discriminating awareness that can tell this from that. And then compositional factors is all the other mental factors, the virtuous, the non-virtuous, the changeable ones, the omnipresent ones, all of the mental factors that arise. And consciousness, so the base for consciousness is. And it's like in the analogy of rebirth, so you're taking a human form that's inside the fertilized egg. So they're the 5 aggregates there. And once, because then you have, on the basis of that, as an embryo develops, the sense consciousnesses develop, or sense, yes.
No,
Is that oh, okay. Sense powers are developed. So the ability, like the basis for the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, well, smell consciousness, I guess, taste consciousness and tactility. They form. So this is, so this one, the empty house, if you can see, it's got, in this depiction, it's got like 6 windows. Sometimes it's a door and 4 or 5 windows, representing those consciousnesses developing. They're not quite developed, they're empty at the moment. It's the basis for it. So this is, again, as the embryo is developing in the womb, and those sense powers are formed, but they're not yet functional. In other words, you've not yet engaged with sight and sound and so forth. Okay. So that comes along in the next one. So down the bottom near the left foot of Yama, you can see a couple in union, in sexual contact. So this is where feeling arises, presumably here, pleasure. And it's like the sense, this actual sense consciousness is developed. They generate contact. So you make contact with a beautiful object of the eyes or the ears or the nose consciousness and so forth. And on the basis of that discriminating awareness, you've, through that contact, which is based on feelings, sensations, right? You have a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feelings arise. So this is coming together, the sense power, the consciousness, eye consciousness, the sense, and then the eyes have developed, and coming in contact with an object, or whichever sense, right? So you come in contact, and then once you come in contact, it generates feeling, either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So at the right foot of Yama, there is the person with an arrow in their eye. I would suggest this is unpleasant feeling, just to demonstrate. Ouch. And why you'd sort of think, well, why didn't they pick something nice? Because we're talking about a cycle of existence that is in the nature of suffering fundamentally. So here he's got an arrow in his eye, and suffering because of contact with an object. So without that contact, there is no feeling, no sensation. Yeah.
So 1, 2 is, it's 1 is almost past previous life.
Yes. Yeah.
then you've got the karma that is thrown, the 3 years after is staying.
Yes.
And then 4 and 5 is almost that was we potentially unusual. Is that too simplistic?
Yeah.
No?
Yes, it is.
Too simplistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's this actually is not one life.
But
What this represents, so 1 to 3, yes,
yeah.
is like the one life.
Yeah.
But then 4 to 7 become the second life. So it gets complicated.
Yeah, so is that transitioning from
past to a future life.
And then where those
Yeah.
our aggregates are not yet fully formed because they cannot come in contact.
Yeah.
Is that part of
The next life.
Yeah,
the next life's coming.
The next
Yeah.
life's coming.
But you'd even say in utero, once they're developed, there's that contact, right?
Yes.
You don't have to be born for that contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
In utero, and then once born,
Yeah.
then you experience the connection
Yeah.
to life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just turn it off. We don't need something. We don't need something. Okay. Yeah, so what are we doing? We're feeling now. We're feeling. So just generally in life, if we're coming in contact with objects of aversion that we don't like, sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, then we're better off to avoid those. Not, minimize our contact with them. And I think most beings try and do that. Most beings go for, we all want to be happy. So we don't want to, jump into a fire or et cetera, et cetera. So to avoid that, which is objects that are going to cause greater suffering, but also alternately, we were born in the desire realm, also to avoid objects that are going to reinforce our desirous attachment. This is where Lama Zopa Rinpoche has said, go to the shopping mall and observe where your attention goes, the things of desirous attachment, but don't go there. Like, don't buy. Just observe what it does. I mean, it's interesting for me as a nun because there are many shops in the shopping centre that are not my business, right? But I can observe what the eyes do and go, none of your business. So this helps. So ordination helps in that. I think it's much more challenging for lay people because it's not like there's lesser boundaries maybe around that. You've got to work harder at it. There's no reason why not to buy, especially if it's half price, end of stock, end of line, whatever, I'll never see it again. Yes.
Already my mind is focused on what's it going to look like, what I'm going to plant, blah, I'm going to be so attached to it. I hope I will live long enough to see it build, blah, blah, all that this kind of thing. Like it's already occupying my mind. I should assume how. I think actually Zopa said something like the lines of something that's essential to life. Like if you need a car, to get around and have a car.
Yes.
But you don't get obsessed with having to do it. Is it?
It's like that. Yeah. It's like I don't need to become a car collector or just on the example of a car. So a friend of mine who's a Dharma student, and she's really into cars. Like, I will pick you up in the BMW or the whatever, Is it a functional car? That's all I'm interested in. Would it get me from A to B? If I have to buy it, will it last a number of years? but, and I thought, ta-da, this is a terrible pun. She has very interesting karma, because she's had so many battles with, I don't know if it's with one car company, I lose track of all these battles about this car and not working and and I'm taking them to court and this is going on. And I'm like, that's this mind of obsession about the car, right? Meanwhile, you know, so how are the kids getting to school? Let's be practical here. So yes, you need a house, and you might as well have a house that you're going to enjoy, right? So you can enjoy it. You can enjoy your house. You can build your house to enjoy, not grasping at it being the source of all your happiness. All your happiness. Like, you know, they have those, what is it? Grand designs. I suggest that could be a bit obsessive. Slightly. I mean, I have friends who love watching grand designs, and I'm like, why? What do you see in that?
Quite a lot of money they spend on that.
The only one I was keen to watch was when it was renovating a cave. And I thought, oh, that'll be fascinating, renovating a cave. It was in Scotland. But, you know, when the guy started renovating, I thought, I've lost interest already. He was out there with his pickaxe and carving a house inside a cave.
I enjoyed it sounds judgmental. You're spending millions of dollars because you want an aesthetic.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what you're looking at to bring your life will be joyful. I mean, there was one recently, and everything, clothes and everything matched this aesthetic. And it had a white living room. Everything was white for children. I mean, wow, it's yeah, it's like a children. They had children, but they were. But I think they said it would do it again. But it's something that would be easy to watch. But
I thought it was one where the child, they were going to film the finishing touches, and the child had drawn on the carpet.
yes,
And they cleaned it up, and it didn't really, you know,
Come back.
Yeah. No. Which I thought was just perfect. You know, that was like, it is not new.
yes, and it's also you cannot control this environment.
I don't know. Yeah.
It will never be soiled. It will never be.
Yes.
The first scratch.
Yes.
What is just go, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that first scratch. Because now I let go of that, you know.
It feels stressful.
It is a stressful way to live. I know from not my experience, but vicariously. So when I was in London, cleaning houses to earn the money to go back to school in Paris, and so one place was a guy's. He was a Greek magnate, so he had all these models come and go. He had walk-in wardrobes of dresses for the models. He had a full-time interior decorator. So it was Albert Hall Mansions, I think it was called. Albert Hall, you know, Albert Hall in London. And so it was around there. And he had one of those mansions. And he tried to totally control that whole environment. So when you're talking about the white, so in this room, there was white carpet. In this room, there was black carpet. I kid you not. Keep that clean. That shall not go there, and that shall not go there. And the full-time interior decorator, she was in the kitchen lining everything up. Like, I don't think that was ever used. Like, it had to be in perfect alignment, like on those shows, everything had to be perfectly aligned. The bathroom, I used to, was like a swimming pool. I had to take the vacuum cleaner down inside the bath to clean it. The toilet and shower water, they had those, apparently it was designed on something like George Harrison's, whatever. They had all these lights like you see in dressing rooms, and everything was see-through. glass. Anyway, and then the bedroom, I kid you not, I believed at the time that he had single-handedly made the ermine extinct by the bedspread. And this was in the 80s. I'm just saying that for context of the next bit, which was from your bed, you could bring the television out, put it back. You could open the curtains, put them back. You could everything remotely in the 80s, early 80s actually, from the bed with the ermine in it. So it was pretty OTT. And one day I was stuck in there. Oh no, he wanted me to move in as his full-time housekeeper. I said, thanks. I mean, if you were really wanting to live life up, I guess you could, but not for this girl. And then he, okay, one time I got stuck in there. I was cleaning and they were out on the yacht. I don't know how I managed to ring him. It was the 80s. Somehow. Did we have mobile phones in the 80s? No.
Really big one.
Yeah.
Maybe he had. Anyway, I managed to get in touch with him somehow. And there was no way I could get out. Yeah. And I thought, I could just be here and have a great time. But I'm like sitting on the edge of a seat going, can I just get out?
I said, quite a few assumptions built in. A, that you're willing to spend your shirt over money, and that you've got permanent staff and that,
Yeah.
you know,
And he had his models coming and going. Let me just say, maybe his ethics weren't also pure. But anyway, yeah. I bet your house is not like that. Yeah. Eco house, wonderful. You can even feel better about it. It's an eco house. So yes, you need a functioning house. And make it so you enjoy it, you know, and as you're making it so you can enjoy it, you can think everything that is here I'm making up as an offering to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Everybody in the neighborhood, you know, has a nice house to look at. All the beings who come here, may you be happy, including the ants.
Yes. And sorry to my husband keeps saying he's going to be out in 1,000. We're not going in there for years, and then it's going to be going to someone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's right. We are only guests.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, we're guests in this body. We're guests in our house. No. Well, even that, the forever thinking, I'm sorry, has faults. The forever is grasping at permanence. You don't have to say that to him, but in your mind go, for as long as we have it, you don't even have to say that to him, but in your mind you can think, for as long as we have it. Yes, that all helps with that. Yeah, that's all help with that. And so you can think, we're doing it to make it as light, to welcome people into, to, you know, yeah. So it's not just, oh, look at my wonderful new house. Yeah. So, yes, I mean, you might as well enjoy it. As it says, avoid things that are aversion. Oh, I can't bear to wake up and look at this house. It's not so pleasant.
I love the energy of the old houses where it had many families moving, and there's the imprints on it. It's about that.
Yeah.
Respect all of that.
Yes.
Being and all the energies there, realizing that I'm only just one piece of energy.
That's a very nice way to think as well. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's not ours. Or even, it's not ours. Yeah, so it's good to look at examples like that and think, okay, how do I work with that? That's great to bring up such examples. Okay, so because if we don't, what happens? Raving. That's the next one. So over here, I think it's someone with alcohol. Yes, they have got alcohol. That's what that flask thing is. Drinking wine. So the idea that your thirst is never satiated. So that's that craving mind that never gets enough. This is what leads to addiction. We know that, whether it's addiction to as many houses or as many cars or the biggest, the best, the only. It's the mind of obsession, isn't it? That's what it is, mind of obsession. I mean, even so, when I was cleaning houses in London, now I think about it, another little example was a woman who she collected ceramic watering cans. There's such a thing. Ceramic watering cans, little ceramic, and so she had these displays of that. It gave her mind joy, and it gave me a lot of work to do cleaning. And but I don't know, she didn't seem to be obsessed about it. A lot. I don't know, I didn't count them.
No,
but you'd have like a counter of that full, and then in another room, another, you know.
Like 50 or 100.
Probably at least 100. Yeah, I mean, people collect all sorts of things. Now you could say that that's just a joy, but if you go over the top and like that's the only happiness in my life, and I'm obsessed about getting the next ceramic one, and you better not drop any and break them, etc. Anyway, it's very telling when things break. It's impermanence. It's impermanence.
I noticed I had a shirt, and yesterday I thought, well, I spilled something when
Yeah.
you were doing the wash today, and I realised actually no, I didn't spill it off.
It-
I consumed some of it.
Yeah.
So I was looking at it going, not that old a shirt, disappointing, but then I thought, okay, well, how can I repair that?
To wear it.
As opposed to,
Yeah.
like it wasn't, but for some it,
Sometimes it is,
yeah.
you know, when things absolutely wear out and it's not the moth. And you just, yeah, it was like,
Yes, but that,
but that watching that mind and seeing, yeah, that mind, that it's not that there aren't other shirts to wear.
yes.
It's just, oh, I've got an attachment. It's got history.
Mhm.
We have history together. We're attached to that history. So some years ago, I threw out all my photo album photos. And another nun said to me, why'd you do that? We've got to claim our history. And I said, oh, yeah, I claim my history, but I don't need the photos to tell me. Anyway, they're all electronic now. And I've kept those, not all of them. Yeah. So it's interesting. We watch those attachments and see, yeah, this is getting a bit out of whack. So as, you know, Tenzin Palmo's friend said to her when she went and stayed her palatial abode, enjoy it while you're here, enjoy the cave while you're there. So, yeah. It's quite an interesting one, houses as well. Like a friend of mine, when her daughter was about 4 years old, and she did that drawing on the walls and everything, and her mother was fuming. And it's like, it wasn't even like a new house. I mean, yes, it was her house. She owned it between her and the bank. But it's like, that's what kids do. So that's, yeah. So I think kids are good. You just got to let go of that grasping, because kids can, I mean, adults can break things, but kids can break things a lot. Animals can, you know, and just like, yeah. Impermanence. It's a lesson in impermanence, right? So when things don't go right, Yeah.
Remind myself that when the kids come up and just clean the kitchen. I called my husband the other day. Said, "Come and just look at it for a second."
Before the kids come.
It's not permanent.
Yeah.
I want it to be permanent, and I get upset sometimes. Well,
And cleaning itself. Kids or no kids. You got to do again and again and again. So, you know, there's the whole practice around cleaning and purification and wipe away dirt, wipe away stains. Oh, they've given me enough opportunity to purify. On a good day, we could think like that. Okay, so this craving, not want to be separated from our objects of attachment or desire or so forth, things that give us pleasure, and craving also to separate from pain. This is where we come back to euthanasia and those sorts of conversations. That is also, doesn't seem to be, but is also a craving to not want to. And that craving unchecked leads to the grasping. Once you have the object, you know, that, and this is where grasping at, shall we say, having a body, are quite attached to having a body, not ready to let go of it anytime soon, even though that could happen any single second, right? So that grasping mind. So here is another monkey grasping at fruit. So this time it's grasping at the fruit, you know, clinging to the tree for more and more fruit. And just as we cling to having our bodies and pampering our bodies and thinking they're pure and perfect, or wanting to make them that way, or spending a lot of time on our, often on skin. People spend a lot of time on their skin, not even the whole body. These days, as you get older, you're spending a lot more money on the insides, I have to say, than the outsides. But that sense of appearance, or not just skin, the clothing, the hair, everything. So we have a grasping that's a desirous grasping at, again, coming from the feeling, you know, strong attachment to sight, sounds, and so forth that give us pleasure. But we also have the grasping at, we'd say, wrong views, afflicted views. Oh, that karma stuff's so rubbish. I can get away with it. Or, I mean, grasping at idea of permanence, of course, but even grasping at the determination to end your life. That's a grasping. Anything can be, isn't it? Grasping at unethical conduct. So we see that a lot in the world, unfortunately. We see some world leaders playing that out obsessively. I have to say, isn't it? It is obsessive. What's happening, Russia, Ukraine, what's happening in the Israel, Palestine, Gaza. It's obsessive. It's like, I can't let go of it. Even the whole world saying, this is not okay. It's like,
walking as protesters, walking saying they killed our people, they are the enemy, they shouldn't be in.
who are protesting against it, blockading.
Yeah, because they have to have special police to deal with females, and so they're working all these angles.
Yeah,
So to make sure that the hate doesn't improve, and sort of saying that
it's very sad, isn't it? We're human beings acting like, well, worse than animals, actually. His Holiness says we act like animals, but look at that, it's worse.
all Palestinians are terrorists, basically. It's the thought that when it's too much.
It's genocide. Yeah.
I think the list when it started, there was a thing on YouTube by
Oh, yeah.
it was just so beautiful.
Mm.
He described, if you can find it, I was so then it came down of which I don't know how it came up with incongruous an image that's incongruous, but it's probably to get on YouTube that he is Israeli,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
he is Jewish.
Yeah.
And his experience just came fully from the heart. It was, when I listened to it, it was just like, oh, and he's put into words what my
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
Is Ukraine is
2.5.
Yes.
2 plus.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
and
it's-
the rest of the world is just too
Yeah. It's like, you know, it feels a very uncomfortable world, very uncomfortable. And this is all this unethical behavior, allowing unethical behavior by sitting back. I mean, you might criticize it verbally or whatever, but yeah, it's the challenges of samsara. And you know, as I've said, I just think those people being pushed Gaza against that wall and Egypt saying you're not going to come over here is crushing hells. Crushing hells. You're being crushed up against that. People are being starved to death.
This is like this one with eight push.
Mm. Yeah.
Can only like 30,000 meals get dropped or which is nothing.
Yeah.
Even the hostages only really.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So tragic. It is so tragic. Yeah. So that's definitely grasping at bad ethics and conduct. And the innate one of grasping for itself in the first place. We all have that. We're born with that. Sort of, while ever we're in samsara, we all have that. While we have the ignorance propelling existence, we will have that. Well, that is the ignorance propelling existence. And existence is the next one, which is the pregnant woman. So, you know, grasping at a body is what generates existence. So this is when the karma leading for next rebirth is actualized. You are going to be born. Right? So this woman's in her late pregnancy, and so definitely the baby's being born. I mean, it's not born yet. Anything could happen, but you know, pretty much that baby's going to come, right? In a conventional sense. So here, this existence is going back to number 2, is the fully realized karma that has thrown your existence. So 2 to 10. And then, so at that time, birth arises. So here, yes, we're looking at that fruition, that next life, the second life. And that existence actually generates birth. So that's the next one, with the woman actually giving birth. Okay. And so, and then what happens? Birth, sickness, aging, death. So that's symbolized in the 12th one up the top. You've got a older person, symbolized by the stick, carrying a corpse. So this is symbolizing that death, ending that life. And so, and then another round starts. Okay. So at the fastest, it said that this whole cycle is 2 lifetimes, as we've just looked at. So in the first lifetime, from ignorance, we engage in action, which leads to the karmic formation, and the potency of that being infused on the consciousness, which is the third one, consciousness. So the imprints on the consciousness. And then 8 and 9, craving and grasping. So near the time of death, the craving and grasping at being in existence, and then that's fully potentialized in number 10, existence. And then in the next lifetime, the results of that, you undergo the effects, which is name and form, the aggregates of the next life, the sense spheres, the contact, the feeling, and birth, aging, and death. So that's 2 cycles. And those 2 cycles don't have to be sequential, right? So that's why a karma of this life, that seed, can be ripened in some future time, as it says in, when we do our motivation for prostrations, for example, when again born human. So there are karmas that will ripen when again born human, right? That will ripen then. So given that, that could be eons in between when again born human, because it's so rare and precious. Who knows, when we connected with the Dharma, and that also multiplied over many, many lifetimes, so that in this lifetime ripened with a very strong motivation to engage in the Dharma. We don't know any of that. And then the other way it plays out is over 3 lifetimes. So we engage in action motivated by ignorance, which is 1 and 2. And that puts the potency, the karmic imprint on our consciousness. And then at the end of another lifetime, which is what I was just saying, with any number in between, craving and grasping nourished a particular potency, karmic seed, right? Established from that earlier lifetime, and then existence, number 10. And then the very next life, name and form, sense spheres, conduct, feeling, birth, aging, and death, similar to before. So it can be 2 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes. So you can have any number of lives in between. So we never know when that comes. We don't know the karma that's ripening in this lifetime, because it has to meet with the conditions to ripen, whether that was from the immediate previous life or some past life, except for those ones of immediate retribution, of killing your father, mother, an arhat, drawing blood with malicious intent from a Buddha, and causing a split amongst the Sangha. So that can ripen in their next rebirth immediately as a hell rebirth. So those people we've been talking about creating all those terrible things in the world are going to get an awful shock. It will be awful. It will be beyond awful. I think already the minds that do that, not just obsession, you're crazy, isn't it?
He looks like suspicious. He's got eyes like a shark.
Well, we could impute things on as well. Yeah. We impute because we have an aversion.
Is that?
There is that.
But he doesn't look that smart.
So what we want to do is reverse this whole cycle. So number 12, the unwanted sufferings of aging and death. So we look at that is produced in dependence on birth, which depends on the existence, which is the realization of the karma, as we said, the karmic formations, so that existence, the pregnant woman, and that's produced upon grasping, which is produced in dependence on craving, and that's produced in dependence on feeling, and feeling is produced in dependence on contact, and contact in dependence on these 6 sense spheres, which are in dependence on name and form. So the aggregates, the 5 aggregates, produced independent on consciousness, which is produced in dependence on the karmic imprints, previous action, independence on ignorance. So then looking at it from a forward way, so that's sort of like abandonment of the previous, in a forward way in terms of process of purification. So when we're purified, ignorance, when ignorance ceases, actually the whole thing ceases, you could say. When ignorance ceases, the whole thing ceases. But when ignorance ceases, action ceases. So when you have the direct perceptual realization of emptiness, a future model, might be the next, no, is it the next one? No, it's not bodhicitta, it's the next one. It's a future one. When you see reality as it is, when you're outside of this whole cycle, you can no longer create karma, no longer create karma, okay? And then when action ceases, consciousness ceases. When consciousness ceases, name and form cease. So we go in the forward direction, and it's like, well, I've got to purify this one, purify this one, purify this one, purify this one. Okay. So there's a lot to understand here. I have to say at the beginning, it's incredibly confusing. So any questions?
It's ways to integrating this to lessen ignorance.
It is to lessen your ignorance, but is that the easiest? I mean, if we can cut through that, we cut through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But may not be the easiest. It may be easiest to intervene at something like feeling, craving, grasping, because we notice those. So if you look at what is it that I notice that I can go, oh, my mind's a bit out of whack here. The most direct, yeah, not the easiest, but the most direct. If we can do that, cut through everything, go for it. That's what we're aiming for. But it is true, if we continue to study, get the teachings, understand, get the teachings on understanding dependent origination, and the flip side being emptiness of inherent existence, of true existence, of things being permanent, of things being independent, of things, which is huge amount of study, because what we're unpacking is all those wrong views that we hold. And it's so like, oh, yeah, I do think that. I do think that. Even within Buddhism, and this comes along in the basic program of studying the Buddhist tenets, the different schools, and the different schools get more and more refined. And as you go through them and you start at the so-called lower schools and you think, but I believe that. And that's the whole point. It's helping us to address where we're holding those views, not saying, oh, they're the lower schools. Excuse me, I'm holding those views myself. Not necessarily holding them like this, but just watch my actions and watch my thoughts and see what they're doing. It's very, very, so from the study side, we can do that. But in the meantime, in every day, we can watch our craving, our grasping, aversion to feeling on discomfort and yeah. So it's very, very useful, right? It's very, very useful. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. Leave it there. So next time we're looking at the way out. Okay, having established that we're all stuck in here, don't leave us there. So we look at the two parts next time. Okay, so we can dedicate. Page 8. Everyone good with doing these in Tibetan? I didn't want to check because I just find it handy to use these rather than the brown folder and flicking around from page to page.
Robert printed one out.
Yes,
So
good. Anyway, you can think that the Tibetan's blessing your mind, which it is. So page 8. Gewadi Nyududa Lama Sangye Drigune Drowa Chikya Malupa De Salagopa Shu Chanchu Sencho Grimposhe Makye Panam Gekuchi Kepa Nyampa Mepa Yang Gongne Gondu Pelwa Shu. On the next page, a prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We can do in English. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher, an assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Prachika Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And the long life prayer for Tenzin also Rinpoche, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. Foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, we make this prayer of supplication. Lama, please, please live long. Thank you very much.